The halfway point of this year's American Le Mans Series was at Washington, D.C. The #1 Audi of Biela and Pirro started from pole, but it wasn't long before the #2 Audi was passed by the Panos of Magnussen and Brabham. It was to be another race of many incidents for the Celine of Terry Borchella and Franz Conrad, who did go on to survive this early collision. And there was drama too at the front of the race as well, when the then race leader Dindo Capello collided with Stefan Johansson's champion Audi. The battle for the lead later boiled down to Pirro and Brabham. Brabham made the better use of the traffic and darted through in the Panos to take the lead from the Audi. Clint Field and John Field went on to finish 12th overall, but to win the LMP 675 class in the Lola MG. And the GT class was a tussle of teammates, with Sascha Maassen and Lucas Luhr taking the class win from the 22 Porsche. The stars and stripes were proudly waved for the Panos team as David Brabham crossed the line to win the first race in Washington for almost 80 years. Point-wise, it's Tom Christiansen that leads the 900 class championship from his Audi partner Dindo Capello. John Field leads the 675 class, whilst it's Ron Fellows that's comfortably ahead in the GTS class and Sascha Maassen the GT class.
So the American Le Mans Series around the Cadillac Grand Prix gets the champagne. The flags get set aside for a moment because they're some important stuff.
The first half of this year's championship is now completed, with thousands of race miles passed since the first round got underway at the Sebring. It's to Canada now that the races head for 2 rounds. Firstly to Trois Rivieres, close to Montreal, and then to Mosport. It's then back on the American trail for the last 3 races of the year. Trois Rivieres is a new circuit to the series and a true road circuit. Only a handful of drivers have ever been here before. It's very tight, narrow and has vicious cambers. With lap times expected to be under a minute, it's going to be a busy race for the drivers. After the morning practice sessions, where most of the teams and drivers got to grips with the circuit, it was on to the afternoon qualifying session, and light rain fell for a short time, making the track quite slippery. Tom Christiansen had only got 1 lap under his belt when the session was halted due to an incident. And unlike all the other meetings, the stoppage time was not carried forward, and the #2 Audi will start the race from 20th position.
Dindo and myself are very motivated. The car is great, so just hope that we are able to make quick and safe passes, because it's a tight and bumpy circuit, and offline there's not a lot of grip, and you need to go offline to make the pass.
There were better times for Lucas Luhr, who set the pole time for the GT class in the Alex Yob Porsche. This was his 2nd pole of the championship year, and that counts for a championship point. He did very little running in the session, but making what he did count.
I should have done 2 warm-up laps. I just did 1 warm-up lap and then a time lap. So I felt the pressure from the tire were not really there. But it is tight between me and my teammate, but it was enough. I mean, 1/10, it doesn't really matter if you are 2 seconds ahead or just 1/10. The important thing is to be ahead, and that was our goal. We did that for today.
Meanwhile, setting his 6th pole position in a row in the GTS class was Canadian driver Ron Fellows. But he did have to work hard for it this time, after the pressure was well and truly turned up by his teammate in the #4 Corvette.
Andy took a couple shots, and each time he went a little bit quicker, and we had to respond. So it's, he's making us work, and that's okay. You know, I'd probably give up a couple other poles to make sure we got one here, because this we've got some history here in Trois Rivieres, and I think they'd probably lynch me if I didn't get the pole in the class here.
The number 50 painters of Jan Magnussen and his partner David Brabham were also to be affected by events on track. And they found themselves 7th on the grid for the race at the end of the qualifying session.
In qualifying, the session got cut short, and Jan never even got a chance to do a proper lap. So I suppose, you know, with us it's 7th, and Tom Christensen down in 20th is going to make for a pretty interesting start.
In the 6.75 class, the number 11 Nighthawk of Chad Block and Steve Knight sits on pole for the class after Block put in a time of just over 1 minute and 2 seconds in the opening part of the session.
I think we kind of got it with the luck that John Field didn't have. It was kind of something we took by default, and we'll take it any way we can get it. And I was just happy to be here. I didn't expect to even be driving at this race. I actually got a phone call from Nighthawk Wednesday night, so I'm real happy to be here, and hopefully we can deliver on a podium for the team.
Whilst others were suffering misfortune, others gained from it, and the 51 Paynos was certainly one of those. Brian Herter and Bill Auberlane ended the session with 3rd place on the starting grid and hoping that they could put this to good use here, but it was going to be an unpredictable race.
Definitely it's tight here. It's tight. For our cars, you know, the 900 cars, it's a big car around this place, and there's some places where it gets pretty narrow, and it's going to be tricky in the race.
The champion Audi started from the back of the grid last time out in Washington, so to be on the front row for the Saturday race put them in contention again as potential race winners. But again, for Johnny Herbert, like many others, he finished the session knowing that he could have done more.
It could have gone better because we only really got 1 lap time in, because there was a little sort of screw bolt thing that came out, and all the fluid came out of the hydraulics for the power steering, and the power steering failed on my 2nd lap. So when we went out again, obviously it was end of time. So 2nd's still good on that side of it. It's a good place to start, and it's going to be more useful being able to start in that position. So I look forward to it tomorrow.
It was happier days for Frank Biela and Emanuele Pirro, who will start from the cherished pole position. Despite that, though, there was still caution in the wind that this was not going to be a race that would be easy to win, and that's something that they've not done since the 3rd round at Mid-Ohio.
The circuit is quite narrow, you have the concrete walls everywhere, so to have a little crash which gives you a lot of time in the pits, the risk is very high to have that. But it's the same for everybody, and I think the main goal should be to keep the thing on the road without any accident, and then there's a good chance to be quite far in front.
26 cars will start the race that will be of 3 hours duration, and with so many with ground to make up, it's going to be pretty spectacular. Not the usual Sunday start for the race, but a day earlier in Canada. Heavy rain fell overnight, and it's made the track quite slippery. But the skies are clear now, and the temperatures are rising. The opening ceremony is always a sight to behold, with all the cars, drivers and the rest of the team lining up in starting order along the start-finish straight. With this short, tight street circuit still heating up in the midday sun to almost 110 degrees and the air temperature approaching the 90s, this is going to be a hard race for the drivers and their cars. And just like Washington, there's no real places where there's time for a driver to rest. So far this year, Audi have won 3 races. Paynos have 2. Audi have set 5 pole positions, well, 6 pole positions now, as the grid is cleared in preparation for the start of this 3-hour race here. This is then how the qualifying finished up. Biela and Pirro, the first men on the front row of that grid. Johnny Herbert, Stefan Johansson alongside them, hoping to get the jump at the start. Further back then, the GTS and the GT classes all fighting amongst themselves for their own class victories and, of course, overall positions as well. So we're on the formation lap. The safety car has pulled off into the pit lane, and as they cross the line this time, they will receive the green flag. There it is, and we are in situation go. Frank Biela leads into turn 1. The 51, Panis is right behind him, but that's Johnny Herbert that's gone off, and also the number 11 Nighthawk car. Drama on the first lap in the first turn. Kevin Allen in the 44 Viper goes wide as well, but meanwhile the car streamed down to the archway, and Johnny Herbert looked like he was getting underway. How much debris is there on the circuit? We'll have to wait and see whether the cars can be cleared. Well, the Nighthawk car is still there, so surely we'll have yellow flags. Will we have a full course caution on this first lap? So Emanuele Pirro leads Brian Herter, then it's Jan Magnussen, Andy Lally in the Lola Judd in 4th place, Chris Dyson in the Rileys and Scott. That's all 5 positions taken by LMP 900 cars. Take a while before we see the others, and I'm sure that was a yellow flag that we just saw out in the corner, and there's definitely there 2 waved yellows, and Emanuele Pirro, we're on board with him, hand up, and he realises what's happened. Here's a replay then, here we go. Here's Johnny Herbert, the white car on the inside of the picture, goes to take the turn, and the Nighthawk car was there, and difficult to apportion blame. The Viper has to move out of the way, so the safety car is out, and they will hold in a procession-like way now, weaving around, trying to keep some heat in the tyres, keep the brakes warm. As soon as the tyres start to cool off, the temperatures actually fall inside the tyres, which makes handling a little bit more difficult when they get undergoing. And there's the Celine, as the number 3 Corvette, so the Celine was ahead of the Corvette there. Remember that the Corvette had out-qualified the Celine. We're on board now with the Olive Garden Ferrari 550 Maranello. That's the number 2 Audi ahead with Tom Christensen on board, so he's obviously made up some positions, and we've got the green flag this time round, so away we go, and it looks a good start for Emanuele Pirro, who got away of the Paynos, and the 2 Paynos cars together. Brian Herter in the 51 car leading Jan Magnussen in the 50, and is Brian Herter going to let him through? He's not, so I would say that means there's no team orders there. It is every man for himself, and Brian Herter currently in 2nd place, out-qualified the number 50 car this weekend. And later on, his partner in that car will change over to Bill Orbelane. Jan Magnussen, of course, will change over to David Brabham. But for the meantime, these 2 are scrapping it out for 2nd place. Emanuele Pirro is pulling away all the time. We still have Andy Lally, who just comes into picture there in the number 30 Lola Judd in 4th place, and Chris Dyson in 5th place at the moment. So that opening corner incident has livened up the first lap, but the Audi just using its superior power and handling to pull away. There's our 4th place man, there's a 5th, and moving up to 6th place is Tom Christensen. Remember, he started in 20th place, so he's passed an incredible 14 cars in the space of just a few laps, and I'm sure it's not going to be long before he starts to take the next car, and that's the 19 car of Chris Dyson in 5th place that he's after, and his Brian Herter and Jan Magnussen. They're still fighting it away. Magnussen on the inside this time. Herter locks the wheel, and through goes the number 50 Paynos, and can Brian Herter stay with him? We'll have to wait and see what transpires with that. But Jan Magnussen I think maybe held up a little bit there, and that's allowed the current race leader, Emanuele Pirro, to get away. So, slight gap developing as they come down through the arches this time, between the 50 and 51 Panos. And the 50 Panos, of course, that win at Washington at the last round, that really was quite an emotional thing for the team. They were absolutely delighted. Their second win of the year. They haven't got anything like the power, the technicality or the resources that the Audi team has, the Audi Sport North America team, the Infineon crew that just have so much support behind them. So Jan Magnussen passes the Viper in the GTS class and continues to pick his way around this short circuit. On board now with Emanuele Pirro as he passes one of the Porsches, and you can see Pirro's head being jostled around there. The bumps are quite severe. There's large cracks in the road as well. The cambers are quite severe, and obviously when you cross over them in the way that the track winds itself around here, does cause quite a lot of jostling for the car. That's the number 13 car that's just been passed now by the current race leader, Ben Devlin, in the Lola Millington. And he's already pitted with an incident after the with the number 26 Celine, with Terry Borchella on board. There's number 3 Ron Fellows in the Corvette, and he leads the GTS class. No stranger to seeing that happen at all. And that's number 89 Merzon in the Porsche 911 GT3, and a spinner for Carlos de Quesada in the BMW N3, the number 40 car, having difficulties trying to get going in the right direction. Not an easy thing to do 3-point turns in the middle of the track, and luckily that's one of the wider parts of the circuit. He gets undergoing again as Ben Devlin comes through. So the BMW we've seen involved in a few incidents lately. There's the other view of the arches as we go back on board now with our race leader, Emanuele Pirro, in the number 1 Audi. Championship winners, of course, last year, partnered by the number 2 Audi. And here is Johnny Herbert. So Johnny Herbert has recovered from that incident in the first lap. He's been into the pits as well and just passes Brian Herter, so takes, that's what would be 4th place now. So Brian Herter down to 5th, Johnny Herbert up to 5th place, and up to 4th place, sorry, Stefan Johansson waiting in the pits for his stint later on. Johnny traditionally does quite a long opening stint. Johnny Herbert picking his way through. So Emanuele Pirro leads from Jan Magnussen in the Panos, and then Audi's next, Tom Christiansen, Johnny Herbert, and then the next Panos LMP01 of Brian Herter. So Jan Magnussen has got the number 2 Audi right behind him now, and Christiansen's done a great job. 17 places he's made up from the 20th grid position out of 26 cars that started this race. We have lost a couple in some of the incidents so far, but Christiansen has used the mighty Audi's power and agility to his advantage, but still a lot of traffic that he's had to pass. So Jan Magnussen really has to defend his lines, keep it tight. The one thing here is that there is only one line. Once you get off that line, there is not so much grip. The track is a lot dirtier, and that is only going to make the tyres suffer. So we're on board then in the GT leader's car. This is the number 23 car of Lucas Law, who leads his teammate Jörg Bergmeister in 13th place overall at the moment, number 22, and a gaggle of cars here fighting it out. Melanie Patterson in the Lola Nissan in the 675 class, and Kevin Buckler in the blue Porsche 911 in the GTs, and that's number 2, and number 50, who lapped them But of course the main thing there is the fact that Tom Christensen is ahead of Jan Magnussen, and that's a view inside the helmet of Jan Magnussen. See him fighting away at the steering wheel there, and meanwhile on the pit wall the telemetry is being studied from the Panos car. So Christensen now up 18 positions to number 2, Jan Magnussen down to 3rd place, and the Audi's just far more suited to this circuit. Just got that extra little bit of power, and certainly the Audi looks a lot more stable and easier to cut through the traffic as well. So Christensen laps the Alex Job Porsche in the GT class, and through goes Jan Magnussen as well. And this turn here is actually where the pit lane is split. The pit lane is in 2 halves. It's on a dog leg as they go through into turn 1, and then out round of this corner and along the Rue Grand Prix to turn 2 and Des Forges down to the Porte du Plis, which is the arch that you see there, out along the Boulevard de Carmel, and then another tight left-hand 90-degree bend before it's Rue de Cologne, and then continuing out along on this street circuit. So the Panos picks its way through the traffic as well. Meanwhile, Emanuele Pirro still comfortably out in the lead, hunted down by Tom Christensen as the 3rd place car of Jan Magnussen behind a Corvette now. So much traffic. Ben Devlin about to be passed as well by the race leader, the young racing driver, started at the age of 12 in karts, and a lot of very vastly experienced drivers and a lot of very exciting young talent in the ALMS series as well, in all these different classes. And through the splendid arches once more, background they go. And the Panos just losing touch with that number 2 Audi. So they just make their way through the traffic. There's Ron Fellows in the number 3 Corvette leading the GTS class, and he will be picked off very easily by the Panos of Jan Magnussen, as one of the BMWs now falls into the sights of the Audi and just passes him so easily. Doesn't have to pull off too far on the line either. Just has so much power in the Audi that he can just nip through. And both the number 1 and the number 2 Audi crews were happy with their cars, and considering that they'd never seen the circuit before, the technicians had nothing to work on except some pictures and drawings of the circuit, and obviously had to come up with some sort of setup before they got to the circuit, and they've done pretty well. Only a few tweaks have had to be made. So on board now, the view from the 3rd position car overall, and 3rd in the LMP 900 class, Jan Magnussen. A little bit of cloud in the sky, but no rain forecast. That it did rain very heavily overnight, and that's taken some of the grit away from the surface, but the temperatures are still rising. It's incredibly hot. The guys in the enclosed cars will be suffering with heat exhaustion, I would think, today. Very quickly and very nicely just nipped through to take the Viper and put another lap on that. And a lot of these cars will end the race considerably down in laps as against the leaders, and that has actually allowed Magnussen to close up to Christensen. Has a look on the outside into turn 1 and goes through on the inside of turn 1 this time. So Christensen has just gone slightly wide there. Whether he was just unsighted by Magnussen or whether it was some traffic ahead of him, well, it doesn't matter at all. He's got ahead, that's what matters, and the team on the pit wall are delighted. Jan Magnussen has won 2 races this year. As we look at his teammate, number 51, Brian Herter, who's had a problem with one of the tyres, lost a little bit of ground. That's the Celine of Terry Borchella behind him, and he's had a few incidents as well. but you just see the panels moving away from the Celine all the time. Such is the difference in the performance of these classes. And there's Johnny Herbert, so he's moving up now, and he will very soon be passing that Celine. Johnny Herbert in 4th place, on board with the lead out, Emanuele Pirro, who's won 1 race this year in that number 1 Audi. And Emanuele Pirro with his first pole position of the year. Down through the arches. Looking back to see if we can see where the number 2 Audi is that's in 2nd place. There he is. So the gap has come down just a little bit, but still a lot of work for Tom Christensen to do. The pit stops and the incidents that are going to happen in this race will all play a part in it as well. And Christensen waits for his moment to pass the Porsche inside the Audi pit box in Gasoline Alley. We go back with the number 2 Audi. And Tom Christensen working away, trying to close that gap, pick his way through the field as quickly as he can. And on board with Jan Magnussen, and this looks like a pit stop. It is, so he's on his way in, very, very slowly indeed. And something's happened to the car. The engine is cut out. Tries to restart the car. He's still quite some way from his pit box and just trying to coast, trying to get the car to fire into life. And the mechanics just sitting there waiting, and painstaking process. Well, the lights are working, he's got power, but just can't get there, and he needs to get into the pit box before the drivers can do anything, before the crew can do anything. And they pull him in now, but losing a lot of time. So what is wrong with the car as the hydraulics go up and the pit stop begins? Chris Dyson in the Riley and Scott has got a broken wing after a collision with the number 51 panel, so he's limping around. And the pit stop has been completed for Magnussen, who stays in the car, but the car won't start, and it does now. So a whole host of time has been lost. And here's what happened when that wing was nudged by Brian Herter, who just clipped the back of the number 16 car of Chris Dyson. And in the tyre wall at turn 3, 26, Terry Borchella, the Celine S7R, has got it slightly wrong, and big tyre streak. Spits top time though for number 1 Emanuele Pirro, who now gets out. It's Frank Bieler who gets in the car. The tyres go on. The fuel has gone in already, and just about ready to go. And his comms hasn't been plugged into the dashboard, but he gets away now. So Frank Bieler on board with him as he comes out of the first part of the pit lane, now turns into the dogleg, continues along at 60 kilometers an hour, no faster than that, or of course you will be penalized, and gets ready to rejoin the race. So he does. Cold tyres, got to take it careful for the first couple of laps, get the temperatures up, and through goes Tom Christensen. That means the number 1 car is now a lap down.
There were 2 cars crashed. I thought it was going to be yellow, so I took the chance to make a full service in the car. It didn't go yellow, so we're 1 lap down, but we had the car serviced, so we would see.
So that's going to be difficult for them to make up. Good news for Tom Christensen, who not only took the lead while that pit stop was happening, but has got a lap in hand as well over the team car. So looking very good indeed. And would you believe that this car is leading by 1 lap over the number 1 car after starting from 20th position on the grid, and that is quite an achievement, and setting them up well. But of course we can see anything can happen at any time, and pit stops still have to happen for the number 2 car as well. So here's the Corvettes, here's the battle. And at the moment, Andy Pilgrim is leading over Ron Fellows, who's quite close to the back of him now. And the Canadian dearly wants to win this race, and I think he's going to take the position this time. Get a good view of some of the cracks across the circuit of around here as well. And through he does, goes through to take the lead in the GTS class from his teammate Andy Pilgrim. And reports are coming in from the pit wall that number 4 has got a slow puncture. So it looked very easy for Ron Fellows to get past him, but Andy Pilgrim knew that he was going to catch him and has led him through. There's the 23 Porsche. Lucas Law, who is the GT leader. Sasha Masson will take over from him later on in this race. So the number 4 Corvette will have to come in and do something about that tyre. Meanwhile, number 3 will disappear off into the dust. And into pits now, Tom Christensen out and helping Dindo Capello into the driver's seat of that Audi R8. And tyres and fuel have gone on board that Audi as well. So we'll have to see how that pans out. Frank Biela, I think, is going to take over the lead. Yes, he does. And we're on board with him now. So that will leave Dindo Capello in 2nd place. And Johnny Herbert in the Audi. In the 3rd Audi will be, in the champion Audi, of course, will be in 2nd place. So Dindo Capello in 3rd place, Johnny Herbert in 2nd place. But Johnny Herbert still to make a pit stop as well. So there is our 3rd place man at the moment, Dindo Capello. Sides his way through the traffic. That Corvette still going, the number 4 Corvette. There is Johnny Herbert, Stefan Johansson waiting in the wings to take over. As they come up now to one of the BMWs. That was the number 30 car as well. They get blue flags that mean they have to let Johnny Herbert through, and that's exactly what the BMW does. And Johnny Herbert now has moved up in position on the track after losing all that time from that incident on the first corner with the number 11 Nighthawk car. So there is Johnny, and there is the 3rd place man, Dindo Capello, who is behind the 51 Paynos. So the Paynos will be lapped, and a few problems that car has had today. Bill Orbelane in there at the moment, and we make him in 5th place. Jan Magnussen is behind these two, but actually in 4th place. So it gets all very confusing the way pit stops and incidents shake the race around a lot. Frank Biela still leads in the Audi, looking for a way past the Paynos, holding up the Audi there, making it very difficult indeed to get past, and that won't please Dindo Capello at all. And that is a problem for the number 50 Paynos. I think some sort of drama there, as through comes the other Paynos and the number 2 Audi. He still can't get through. A bit of bodywork flying around that's come from some... Did it come from one of those cars? Or was it out on the track? Well, looking at the back of the Paynos and the Audi, and can't see from here anything that's missing. But it's always hard to tell. Could always have come from the underneath or around the wheel arch. So we'll see what happens with that. No visible problems with either of those cars. The Audi still looks so much more stable, just handling a lot better on this track. So one of the Porsches passed, and Dindo Capello still not finding a way past the Paynos at the moment, and he really does need to do that. Can't afford to lose too much ground and too much time to Frank Biela in the number 1 Audi. Frank Biela, another one of the drivers who lives in Monaco. As Dindo Capello makes it through this time. He's got it, got a beautiful line, worked hard for that. We're on board with Frank Biela. Meanwhile, deep blue skies with some cloud around, and it's not really made too much difference to the temperature or the track temperature. That's still very high indeed. Clear road ahead of him at the moment, but of course that's not going to be for long. There is the 22 Porsche, and the number 66 car and the number 50 car get tangled up. Here's a replay on board of that and that was the fault of the Paynos, and into the tyre wall goes number 3 as well. So suddenly, after everything had been quite calm for a while, Johnny O'Connell, who took over after Ron Fellows, came in for his pit stop and has ended up in the tyre wall, and cars passing him left, right and centre. A lot of damage to the front of that Corvette, but has the radiator been damaged? Let's hope not. That will cause all sorts of problems. Here's a replay, and just got it too wide. The concrete wall was protected by the tyres, which has helped a little bit. And in the pits now is the Paynos of Magnussen, and that's David Brabham, who's inside that car, who took over after the pit stop. But that was due to the collision with the number 66 car, and the car is stalled as well. And we saw that there was problems earlier on for Magnussen in that car. The number 3 Corvette has continued onwards and is alongside James Weaver now in the number 16 car. And all sorts of problems for the Paynos car then. They've taken him behind the pit wall and working on the car. Time will tell whether he will rejoin again, but the Corvette has decided to stay out and see what happens. The report is that everything is handling okay. Well, might just let a little bit more air inside, if nothing else. But aerodynamics not playing a great part to this race here today. They do help, of course, but not getting up to such high speeds. In the pits, Lucas Law has now handed over to Sasha Masson, who still will retain the lead in the GT class when he makes it back out onto the circuit. 88 in the pits as well, and almost at the end of this pit lane, and even the pit lane's very bumpy indeed. So does make it out, slots behind the number 4 Corvette, but keeps the lead in the GT class. Well, this is an incident that's happened at turn 6. Brian Willman, who was leading the 675 class, has been pushed out and back onto the track and retains the class lead, but he is going to receive a stop-and-go penalty for receiving assistance to restart at the corner, but he'd rather have that penalty than not restart at all. Meanwhile, in the pits, Frank Biela has come in for fuel only. This has handed the lead to Johnny Herbert now in the number 38 car, so Frank Biela fueled and booted. Well, not changing tyres, so they're double stinting on the tyres, and this should take him now all the way to the end of this race. Number 19, Paul Fix, has spun at turn 9 as well. A few cars at turn 9, but the Lola Nissan is back out on the track once again. Oh, and a big crash for Tom Weckard in the Dodge Viper. He's okay, gets out, looks a little bit shaken, and he's going to have a few bruises, can't believe it. And the safety car is coming out for that, and that was a big crash for him. And we've seen some spectacular crashes, not that we wish it on them, in the Dodge Vipers this year, and a little bit of work to be done on that. So into the pits comes number 2, Dindo Capello, fuel and tyres. Driver stays in as they work to extract that number 44 Viper. They've got to get him off the course and rebuild the tyres. Johnny Herbert now hands over to Stefan Johansson. So this means that Frank Biela now leads the race. Dindo Capello in second. Stefan Johansson, who lights up the rear tyres of that Audi, heads out of the pit lane again at the obligatory 60 kilometers an hour and back out on the circuit in 3rd place. So heading for a restart, heading for the green flag once more, and they get the power on, and that Paynos is snaking, but there is our race leader. 1, 2, 3, 4 cars back, and over the line they go. Time ticking away, and the Paynos struggling to get grip there and just goes straight on. Not quite sure, but something that purely must have been technical, and we've seen all sorts of problems for that number 50 car, and spent a long time in the pits to David Brabham after that stop and go penalty, and it looks as if there's no power to that car. Well, he has got power, but it's just not going. And is this going to be a retirement? Well, just not going well for the Panos team here at all.
That was good. We got in a good position by the end of that run, so no, I'm happy where we are. Stefan and his experience hopefully will keep us there.
Well, Johnny Herbert then, time for him to relax and watch the rest of the race unfold as his teammate there just teeters around the corner, still holding on to third place. Johnny O'Connell in the number 3 Corvette in second place in the GTS class as we go on board with Timo Bernhard, and in second place in the GT class, looking for a way past Sasha Masson. And I think he's done it. He has indeed, alongside now, but he's got the better line in for this left-hand turn. So these two have been dicing it out all day, and they have been for the whole year really. But now it is number 22 Timo Bernhard that leads from 23 Sasha Masson, distinguished of course by the yellow and red sun strips that they've got there on board, and looking back from the 22 car of Timo Bernhard ahead at Sasha Masson. So the battle in the GT class continues, and this is Frank Biela, and he's down to second place now. He's been passed by the number 2 Audi, and will no doubt be wondering whether that wrong strategy stop earlier on would have meant different times for them. But he passes the number 43 Porsche now. Not too many cars dropped out. And I would say at this point of the race, not quite as many incidents as maybe I or many others were expecting. And there is the race leader, Dindo Capello, behind David Brabham, who's in 6th place currently. So the dramas for the Panos team have been fairly severe, but still they're hanging on to 6th place at the moment. So through he goes to pass that Panos, and on his way with only a handful of minutes remaining in this race. And can they keep it to take a win? Well, the Audi pits watching their cars, and this is the battle for the GT class again, and this looks like, oh, it's going to be a very brave maneuver. Can he make it stick as Sasha Masson goes to take the GT class lead? And he does, and that was brilliant driving by Masson to pass Timo Bernhard. And these guys, of course, are teammates. They won't take any risks in punting each other off. That would not go down well at all. And well, in some ways it gives you a little bit of leeway, because you know that your teammate isn't going to risk throwing it away and taking both the cars out, but you've got to be very brave indeed for that. And he's just romped away as well. So at the moment, Sasha Masson looks like he's running away with the GT class win here. And it's been a great battle between those two all the way through. Sasha Masson then leading Timo Bernhard, number 22. Distinctive colours in these cars, almost identical cars apart from that sun strip at the front, the yellow and the red one. Caught sight of second man in the 675 class, Jeff Bucknam, in the Phil Beam Nissan as well. So he will pass very quickly number 23. I think the difference in the speeds of the car, he does. So currently in second place, as we said, in the 675 class. Around the turn they go. Back with Sasha Masson. And he's got quite... oh, here's a replay then. This is a replay of Masson passing Timo Bernhard. And that was a beautiful move. One of the best moves, I think, of the race. And just continuing on behind that Phil Beam. Well, the Panos is just in the background. And the light beginning to change on this circuit as the sun moves over in the sky. The late afternoon And 3 hours this race against the... Oh, and that's the number 13 car of Ben Devlin that's come to an unfortunate end. That looks like it's going to be a turbo failure or definitely some sort of engine problem. And disappointment for Ben Devlin. He was leading the 675 class in that Lola Millington. So that means that Jeff Bucknam is now the new class leader in the 675 class as the marshals make that car safe. And disappointment for Ben Devlin and the rest of the Archangel team. Down through into the arches then is the number 56 car, Jeff Bucknam inside that, and he now leads that 675 class. Emmanuel Naspetti, who is third in the GTS class and 8th overall in that Ferrari 550 Maranello, and it seems to have come good in the last few races. They had a lot of problems with it, but on for a finish this time. And Dindo Capello on the last lap of this race now. Once he crosses the line, the next time it will be for the checkered flag, and he will be delighted. So one more lap to go. No sign of Frank Biela in the number 1 Audi, who's going to finish in second place, and it is still the number 38 Audi of Stefan Johansson that's going to be in third place if they stay where they are now. And round for the final time. Can't afford to lose any concentration. You've still got to keep it going. Although you can back off a little bit and just preserve the car, preserve the tyres, and make sure you don't make any mistakes. Lapse of concentration could still mean that you get caught up with a back marker. You could get clipped, involved in somebody else's accident, like we've seen several times in this race. But so far it's going well, and not far to go now for Dindo Capello, who's going to cross the line and will therefore take his third win of the year, and it will be his teammate Tom Christensen's second win of the year. The arms out, he's delighted. A good day's work done as he crosses the line to take the checkered flag, and delighted, and so too will the Audi team. So it is Dindo Capello and Tom Christensen that win the first ever American Le Mans race at Trois Rivieres in Canada, from Frank Biela and Emanuele Pirro. Johnny Herbert and Stefan Johansson are third. Pilgrim and Collins take the GTS class victory and 5th overall, while Lucas Law and Sasha Masson the GTs. And in the LMP 675 class, the victors were the 3-man team of Buckman, Willman and McMurray.
I almost made a mistake in the second last lap, and I told to myself, you have to be calm, you have a big gap, just wait the checker flag, and I did it.
In winning the GTS class, the number 4 Corvette pairing of Andy Pilgrim and Kelly Collins rack up their second win of this season, and they both now have their 5th career wins.
Great weekend for Corvette racing again. We get to win this weekend. I'm not sure they're going to let me out of Canada. You don't beat Ron Fellows in Canada and not go to jail, apparently. So, but Ron and I had a good run. They had a little misfortune, so it wasn't close at the end. But Kelly and I just real happy. The whole team's very happy, and he did an awesome job. And I like this place. You know, I like this track. This is my second win here, so I'm very happy.
A win that just did not seem possible when the green flag signalled the start of this 3-hour race, and Capello and Christensen started from their 20th grid position. A very happy Audi team with a 1, 2 and 3 finish. Christensen and Capello increased their lead in the 900 class from Frank Biela and Dindo Capello. In the 675s, John Field leads Ben Devlin. Despite their second place, Ron Fellows and Johnny O'Connell still lead the GTS class. Sasha Masson and Lucas Law lead their teammates in the GT class. Another exciting race in the series, and there will be celebrations in the locality tonight for many. The ALMS series returns to Canada once again in 2 weeks' time, when it makes its return to Motorsport, and that should again be a race that could hold a few surprises.
Here we go.